welcome in Wrong Side of the Pond. He is DJ Schweitzer. I am Jeremy Lance, enjoying some spring weather. Are we?
As best we can, especially now that training sessions have resumed for my club team that I coach. I'm very much relishing the warm temperatures, but not just for soccer reasons, also because I need to get my family out of this house and into other spaces.
I remember like the first couple of weeks of like COVID lockdown, like our kids had schoolwork that they were doing at home, but then they were just like bouncing off the walls the rest of the day. So like I just started implementing like quote unquote a gym class where it was really I just had the kids like just do laps like on our street, and it was really just to tire them out. I didn't actually care if they got any fitness out of it. I just needed them to just blow off some steam and cool their jets. Like,
why don't you kids
wear yourself down?
Why don't you kids go out and run laps in the cul-de-sac and just leave Dad alone to his bourbon and beer?
That's right. It was really great because like the twins are super competitive, so it was very easy to just get them going. Of like, all right, who can be the fastest to our friend's house and back? Just run up to their mailbox and come back. Who's gonna be the fastest? And then like, the other one's not satisfied with the results, so they just do it again and again.
Nice little feedback loop you've got built in there.
Yeah, but that's what you should do. Just get them, just get them running some laps out there.
All right, soon enough. But you're reminding me that this is actually marking 1 year that we've been doing the podcast remote. You've probably heard, the listeners have probably heard out on every airway imaginable. Everyone's talking about the year that has been, and it's been weird. Like, we usually have seen each other once a week pretty much for like most of the last decade, and we're still doing that, but like we've not actually sat in the same room now for well over a year. And that last podcast we did was actually at your Gotham offices.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We went there. You were pulling some all-nighter type deal.
Yeah, because that makes sense. Right around this time of year is when I got all my leagues getting ready to start, and I was probably building a schedule or doing something.
Yeah, so you're like, hey, and there's really not been anyone in the building, so come on down. And this now marks a year that we've not been hanging out in person, and frankly, I miss your musk a little bit.
Sorry about that. Yeah. I'll bottle some up and send it to you. It's wild to think, a year ago we were still in that mindset of like, oh man, wow, that's wild. Germany's gonna have to, go behind closed doors. That's something, huh? Weird. And then like not thinking like it's headed your way.
Yeah, but we didn't really exactly have a full picture of it at this point a year ago.
No.
But here we are a year later. We are getting professional soccer to watch. As we were talking about right before the show, because of the way COVID has impacted things and it pushed last season so close to the start of this season, this has felt like endless soccer, like the season that has never ended.
Because, yeah, it was like, what, 5 or 6 weeks was the off season? And then we were just straight back into another season, and then we were just going, and we haven't stopped since. And there's just games coming fast and furious. And we talked about last week, like storylines are just like so fleeting that it's like there's no point even holding on to like a storyline of like, oh, how about Everton? Oh, nope, now not anymore. How about these? How about Southampton? Remember when Southampton was like a big deal? Like, I don't know, like a month ago. Like, hey man, look at these guys, are doing great. I don't even know what they're doing now. I think they still play soccer. They got blown out by City. You know that.
Yeah. No.
Couldn't tell you where they're at on the table.
It's been difficult to keep track of, and never-ending seasons often lose their allure a little bit, and it's been hard to really invest yourself to a certain extent. But we're here, and we're going to attempt to do that this week as best we can. And we'll start off investing ourselves in something we never actually invest ourselves in whatsoever, and that's our fantasy teams.
And it shows.
Oh, that too. Premier League leader still, Tyler Kelly's Ole Can't Drive, 11 shows in a row for him. Seems highly likely he's probably going to win the league at this point. Positive weeks for both of us. I moved up 8 places to 44th. Wow. You improved 1 place to 90th. this is just a positive update and a great way to get us going on the rest of this week's show.
All right, let's get into it though. The big meatball there, the big thing to talk about over the weekend and this week was the Manchester Derby, the first versus second matchup, the big battle between a team that has basically already won the league and a team that is still deciding if it wants to be good enough to kind of contend for the what's left of the league to contend for. And the winner was the team that was still figuring themselves out. So that was weird.
Yeah. Also weird. City hadn't lost in like 1,000 years before this match, and they finally lose. I even went back and looked at this. They hadn't even trailed in a game since November of last year, and that was against Spurs, which seems forever ago too. But I mean, the fact that United won this match after it's kind of like everything that we've seen this season. Like Liverpool went 100 years without losing a match at home, and then they've lost like 5 straight matches at home. Of course, City go on their longest undefeated streak ever, and then they lose at home to a Manchester United side that they probably shouldn't be losing to. And it's just a very like a microcosm of what this Premier League season has been. Like anything can happen in this season, and all likelihood, like the good teams will rise to the top and will finish where they should. But like in the small moments that happen over the course of the season and in this game, the unpredictable may unfold.
It's not uncommon that in a title run, that towards the end of the season you play United, and you kind of just you just let them win. You just kind of chalk that game off. Like I remember last time Chelsea won the league, like we played United at Old Trafford like mid-April, and they like waxed 0 and like matter. Like it's like whatever. All right, have your win. We're moving on. We're trying to win a title over here. Get out of our way. And it kind of felt like that. Obviously for United, it meant so much more. Taking out the noisy neighbors. You gotta throw this out here. Like Ole has actually done fairly well against City in league competition. He's 3-1-1 against Pep and City.
I mean, that's solid. He's won 3 straight away matches. That's
pretty good.
He's won 3 straight away matches at City as well, which I mean, that's impressive in its own right. Yeah, it's wild. We not all that long ago we're talking about how big of a pretender is Ole, and now we're sitting here going, maybe he's actually got the wheels on straight. And I do think this type of win is huge for United from a momentum building perspective. If they can carry this into next season and use this end of the season as a way to boost themselves forward, make a good signing or two over the summer, they are in that conversation again. But they have to maintain that consistency, and that's something that Ole sides have struggled to do so far for United. But he does seem to be flattening the curve and getting it so that it's more on an always upward trajectory, which is a big task that a lot of managers that have much higher pedigrees than him have failed to do. And maybe we're selling Ole a lot short over the last few months.
2 questions. One, I know it's like we're looking way farther down the road, but like you talked about like make a good signing in the summer. If they like, you don't have to say like who they would bring in, but like what's the one position that it's like if they can get a top level talent in there, it it jumps them right into like legitimately being right there fighting with City.
I mean, I think probably a top ranked center back to really get them upright and organized. I'm just not completely sold on the pairings that they have. I also maybe it's like figuring out what they're going to do with the Pogba situation. I think more than anything, that's like a weight around their neck, because if he's playing in his game and he's peak, like there's not really anything you can do to stop the guy. But if he's not going to give it his all and he's not invested, then move on and find a better piece that will be more congruent with the rest of the system. So I do kind of think if they can solve the Pogba situation, that might be enough really to get them over the edge.
Second question. Last week our whole thing was like, City's won the title, but like, how do we really feel about the level of the rest of the teams, like ranking them out? Do we feel differently? Like, I think I still put United second, but we talked about how there was just a gigantic chasm between first and second. Do you still feel the same way about United, or did they like actually show you something that made you feel like oh wow, that's for real? Or was this just like, hey, this is just a thing they've been able to do?
I do think this was a match where
beat City.
Yeah, but I think both of these teams were going for it. Like they clearly both really wanted to win, and I think
sure
this puts more cement into the idea that like Manchester United are a team that are confident and are capable of doing this. And I rank them in the tier 2 alongside Leicester, and I think you look at Leicester won this weekend in good fashion as well. And you kind of go, right, these two teams are about in that same conversation. So yeah, I don't think it necessarily changes anything, but I think it more reaffirms where I kind of placed them last time out.
Kind of going back to what I was saying about City and how, losing to United, that just happens sometimes in a title run. We do feel that way, right? Like this is just a blip. You don't see City like plateauing here and like just barely making it to the finish line. Like they're probably still going to just go full steam ahead. I mean, we basically already saw that they played Southampton at the midweek in one of their makeup games there and just absolutely demolish them.
Yeah.
This was just a little blip.
Yeah,
right? This was nothing. There's nothing to see here.
I literally put in my notes, this matters not for the title race.
This sounded a bit Shakespearean there. That was.
Yeah, I mean, a little formal every once in a while. So we're questioning here whether or not United are actually good, and I think we're kind of feeling like they are. Let's transition to another team that we need to ask that same question of, and that's your Blues. Are Chelsea good? 2 big wins in a row for the Blues, both over sides from Merseyside. Liverpool last week, Everton this weekend. Those are very convincing wins. And if you go back even further, you guys haven't lost a match since the middle of January.
Otherwise known as when Tuchel took over.
Yeah. And you look back at that and you kind of go, all right, you have to feel good at this point about getting rid of Frank. And I know you love Frank, but it seemed like a great choice.
I'll never feel good about getting rid of Frank. Do I feel good about the situation the team is in now? I mean, ultimately, yeah. Like we have not lost under Tuchel. We have only conceded 2 goals across all competitions since he's come in. He obviously he's yet to lose. He's got things down. I mean, he's still being very experimental, at least from like the squad rotation that he's. I mean, squad rotation has been wild. Like you have no idea what 11 dudes are being put on that sheet every match day. Like it's a kind of a mystery. Like just when you think like, oh, he's all in on this guy, like that guy, like, oh, Mason Mount's our best player. We got this big game against Everton. I'm sorry, what's that? Oh, he was benched. Oh, Callum Hudson-Odoi is going to play in the mid. Okay. Kai Havertz, who's been an absolute ghost, is going to play and actually play very well. Okay, I guess. All right, let's do that. Alonso, like he's playing Alonso a lot, but then he gives like Chilwell some starts, and Chilwell does fine. Remember, this all started with him wanting to turn Callum Hudson-Odoi into a wingback, like the moment he took the job. So that's been interesting. All of these changes, all of these experiments with where he's putting guys in the lineup. It is a bit of a different thing, and going from Frank, who I think was obviously more about kind of big picture concepts as far as tactics go, and really probably being more about managing squad and momentum and kind of the energy, where you're bringing in a guy like Tuchel, who is like, tactical savant here, that's got like this, these minutia little like game plans and things he wants to do for every single matchup they've had since he's been around. They even talked about it when they were like hiring him, that like he already probably had like, he pretty much rolled into Stamford Bridge with binders full of like his thoughts on how to beat every team in the league. Like he's just that, in that kind of a just nitty gritty, in the weeds with tactics mindset, and it's been awesome to see that. Now, the reverse side of that is, it'd be a lot cool if we actually scored more than like one goal most matches. That would be that wouldn't suck. There's also some player personnel movement that has not been awesome. Ben Chilwell becoming a ghost, Pulisic becoming a ghost. We never got under Lampard, and it looks like we will never get under Tuchel. Like that big, fancy front three with Werner and Pulisic and Ziyech, and then you drop Kai Havertz right behind him. Like, that's what we all wanted in the offseason. We didn't get it under Frank, and we're never going to get it under Tuchel, it looks like. So, yeah, we're playing really well. Everything's awesome. Obviously, it's not going to last forever. We're eventually going to lose a match. But I don't know. Like, I still think, like, I've not grown attached to him yet. But on the whole, like, I'm not hating this.
No, I mean, I think you guys are an improved side. I don't think there's any question about that. I'm intrigued to see if he can keep up this level of consistency with it, especially with how much he rotates. That's what's kind of wild to me, is that the teams have been so different, but the results have kind of been exactly the same. And it's very confounding from that example. Like, you would expect if there's a lot of rotation, there might be, some up and downs, but that might also be a good sign that he's clearly communicating to the players what they want, and what they need to be doing, and that flipping out a player doesn't really much matter. But he's a conservative coach in that respect, right? Like he takes very calculated risks in the way that he goes about doing his business. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you need to start getting used to the idea of these low scoring matches. Obviously, if they can produce more, he can, but he's very guarded about what he wants the team and their specific roles to do. And you talked about not getting to see that much ballyhooed front three or four, and part of the reason we're probably not seeing a lot of Christian Pulisic, outside of the idea of him being made of glass, is the fact that he just doesn't do all the things likely that Tuchel needs him to do on both sides of the ball. He's not great at tracking back. He doesn't offer a lot of defensive assistance. And that's something that Tuchel really demands of those types of players. And it might be, I mean, Pulisic was even saying this week, like, he's not trying to talk about his future right now, but he's going to reevaluate things in the summer. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if we saw Chris move on to pastures new this summer.
Okay. I'm going to say something sort of controversial, but much in the same way that I didn't want Chelsea to hire Frank, just because of the weight of, like, I wanting Frank to succeed so hard, that there was like just this added weight to every moment. It's the same thing with Pulisic. Like, if he leaves, obviously I hope he leaves for like a Bayern Munich or somewhere out of the league where he's not, just running roughshod on us, like, in the league twice a year. Like, I'd kind of almost be okay with it, just because, like, as an American supporter, like, the added pressure I've felt to, like, I want to enjoy these Chelsea wins, but, like, these wins also need to involve Pulisic playing and playing well. And this just added feeling of, like, this also needs to happen for this to be enjoyable. he leaves, that weight's gone. Obviously, if he leaves and goes somewhere within the league, well, then he's just going to haunt us for the next couple seasons. So that'll be awesome. And if he stays, if he stays, I would imagine he stays because Tuchel will at least kind of give him some hope that he's like gonna be part of like a week in and week out starting 11. But right now, there's no sign of that.
No, and I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where he might go if he were to leave. Obviously he has a lot of talent, but even if he went to another Premier League side, there's a really good chance he'll be knocked up and not capable of actually playing when you guys are, facing up against him. So I don't know.
Yes.
I worry a little bit that we're seeing shades of John O'Brien with Christian Pulisic, and we never really get to see him realize his full potential because the guy can't stay on the field long enough. And that's not all of the problem that's happening at Chelsea right now, but it is an impact. And if you can't rely on a guy, it's because of his injury record. It makes it really difficult to make him a concrete portion of your plans. And I do wonder if that's impacting his situation and has made it difficult for him to really bet in at Chelsea.
And it's funny as a Chelsea supporter here in America, it's all focused on like, oh, Pulisic isn't getting minutes. But like, there's like three, including Pulisic, like three of the big names we brought in over the past 18 months are not getting minutes. Kai Havertz showed up in that Everton match, but he was on the side of a milk carton before that. Like he was nowhere to be found. Ziyech, there was so much hype about him coming in. We saw what he did with Ajax, and he has been used minimally with Tuchel, and so you really wonder like. And maybe, and this is like something that's obviously been the downfall of a lot of Chelsea managers, and something that people were already warning about with Tuchel is like, are we going to have Tuchel and the board already fighting? Because the board has spent money on all these guys, and so far Tuchel is not super interested in using any of them outside of Werner. And even then, he's got to go to like get Giroud to come hang out and run on the field and score the goal to get the game winner. Like there's already stuff brewing as far as that goes. Where like we're gonna hit that transfer window in the summer, and Tuchel's gonna be like, I want this, this, and this, and the board's like, guy, we just bought like all these dudes. Like we're not just flipping this thing on you. Like you got to make this crap work.
Yeah, it seems to be a repeating pattern at Abramovich's Chelsea, and
that's what we do.
There will come a time when this manager will be on the outs. It may be now, it may be in a few months, but it will come eventually.
That's why he was only given an 18-month contract.
Let's whip around the rest of the Premier League and talk about some of the other teams that are playing football at the moment.
How about your Spurs? They're playing not crap right now.
Yeah, they're back buoyed into a better position than they've spent in the last couple months. 4-1 win for them over Crystal Palace at the weekend. Bale with a brace, Kane with a brace. Son and Kane breaking the league record for goal combinations between teammates in a season with 14. One would presume they will continue to add to that over the course of the rest of the
Whose record did they break? Do we know? I'm assuming it's Drogba and Lampard. I know they have a lot of those records.
I think it's either Drogba and Lampard, or there was some. I can't remember who. I think it is Drogba and Lampard. But all that said, great achievement for the two of them who continue to have a great season. But I'm mostly excited, and this is hardly surprising at all, over Gareth Bale's reemergence over the last month.
It's about time.
Yeah. Look, they said right after he arrived that he arrived injured, and he said it was going to be a long road to recovery to get back.
Did he arrive, like when they said injured? Was he injured or was he just not fit? Like super not?
Like, I mean, he basically spent 2 years rotating
just sitting on a
between being
bench,
out of favor or injured or the like.
golfing.
Yeah, or golfing. And so he came to Spurs, and they reportedly found something during the medical, and like it was a bit of the hold up and delay in actually announcing the deal. But ultimately, Jose had kind of said all along, like, hey, we need to get him fit in order to get him back, and he's showing not just like glimpses, but that match against Palace, he looked like old Gareth, like the full gusto runs, the clever footwork, the power on his shots,
the bad hair,
the bad hair, all of the above. And like as a guy who's one of my all-time favorite players, it's been supremely satisfying. Now I will say, if they don't extend this loan and they have an option to do so, I'm gonna ignore all pandemic rules and like get over to London and burn that place to the ground. He's been way too dynamic for them to not pick him up, and I think if he can carry this head of steam into next season, he could really help propel them forward in a way that they haven't been able to. So I'm really happy with where we're sitting now. You know, the goal really is just trying to get into the Champions League again next year. And I'm trying to remember too, like they're still in the Europa League and advancing at that point as well. So there's a lot to still look forward to with the Spurs, and as gloomy as it's been, it's a little brighter at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like it was just weeks ago that like the doom and gloom of Mourinho has already burned the building down. We are just careening towards complete disaster. It's year 3 Jose in like month 13 of his reign. Like, how is this going bad so quickly? But yeah, I mean, a good run of form. You got players playing up to their potential. In the he has been on the pitch. He's actually been playing well. So even have that going.
Yeah,
he had that nice spike.
Yeah, I mean, who would have known? But no, it's been good for Spurs. We mentioned earlier Leicester have continued to just trot along. We keep questioning whether they're going to run out of steam this year, and so far they haven't. So it's interesting to see them get that kind of grinding, gutsy win at Brighton out of the way at the weekend. Let's switch over to sides though that aren't doing quite as well.
Okay.
Liverpool. This slide continues. How low will they
go? After the match with Fulham, where they officially dropped their 6th straight match at home, I texted in a group chat with one of my buddies, is a big Liverpool fan. I texted in a group chat the GIF of Jurgen counting to 6 with his hands on the parade bus, and I was like, "How many home losses in a row, Jurgen?" And that friend has not texted me since then. That was on Saturday, and I've not heard from him since.
Nothing like ruining friendships over a little banter, huh?
There's some bitterness.
Yeah. It is continued bitterness for the Reds as they just can't seem to get themselves out of this funk they find themselves in. And they are in some serious danger of like not being able to correct this ship in order to find themselves back in Champions League places.
Yeah, it was funny. Like I looked at everything today when I was doing notes, and like you almost have to do a double take when you go, wait, I'm sorry, they're in 8th. They're in 8th. It's not only are they in 8th, but a side like Arsenal, who has not had a good season basically all season, is like what, 5 points, 6 points away from them?
Yeah.
5 points. 5 points with a game in hand.
It's a pretty narrow gap considering Arsenal have been pretty garbage all year long. Now, I'm saying that there's a North London derby this weekend, which means they're totally going to beat Spurs. So
blow their doors off. But like if we were saying all season long, like, man, Arsenal's having a rough one. Liverpool has now officially joined that. Like, there is no question about it. you are in a position where Arsenal could, I mean, they get hot, they get a good little stretch of games here. You could have Arsenal ahead of Liverpool here in just the matter of weeks.
And what's wild is Liverpool were totally in the title conversation 2 months ago?
If that.
Yeah, I mean it's really been that type of a seesaw year for loads of teams. It is, I mean, I've said this before, it's so comforting seeing Liverpool have this yo-yo year as Spurs have this yo-yo year and going well, if they're having it, it's not that big of an anomaly that we're having it as well. It makes me feel better about things, for sure.
It does, even on the whole, the fact that you got City doing their thing, but then after that, all the other big clubs have been super inconsistent, have had their purple patches, have had their big issues happening. It kind of is comforting to be hey, we're all kind of sucking right now. It's all been just kind of a weird year for all of us. No one's running away from each other. We're just all here just being inconsistent and up and down and frustrating.
Yeah, that is a excellent way of summing up the English campaign, I think, for pretty much everyone. Anything else we need to hit on before we move over to the domestic side?
Nah, let's just head on over.
All right. Home openers have been announced for Major League Soccer. That's exciting.
Yay! Ours is in middle of May.
Well, which was not entirely surprising, given that they're building a stadium and
that's still not done.
Yeah. So I can totally get that. Exciting though to see a side like Inter Miami and some big stars coming to Cincinnati for that home opener on May 16th. So it'll be a nationally televised game. It'll be kind of a big fun affair. Hopefully we'll have a decent number of fans in the stands. It sounds like 30% has been approved by the state. We haven't heard yet whether MLS is okay with that number, but
I'm pretty sure MLS is trying. We got bills to pay, friend.
Yeah.
They're going to say, hey, whatever the state will let you get away with, and if you can squeeze a few more in, go ahead and do it. That's what MLS is really saying to their teams.
Yeah. Oh, it's a formality at this point. But yeah, I mean, big news there. It is always weird to me that we get these first dates knowing full well that MLS has not finalized the rest of their schedule. It's just kind of one of those things well, just give them something to shut them up for a couple minutes.
And I believe I heard we're still the rest of the schedule is not going to be announced for another couple weeks.
Well, and what's difficult about this is these Canadian teams are completely incapable of coming back into Canada if they come here. So
right. For now, yeah.
Yeah, for now. So
it's weird because they can't truly know where they're okay, so we obviously we're playing games in May, June, July, August. We don't know at what point we'll be allowed to play those games in Canada.
Yeah.
Probably I'm guessing my ballpark guess would be August.
If we're lucky at this point, and we may end up having teams based out of Rhode Island again, and it sounds as if some of these teams are going to have to take a permanent temporary residence again with in other stadiums with other clubs potentially. So
I mean, it was so dire that Thierry Henry had to use it as his fake reason why he had to quit the team.
Yeah, totally not something else potentially opening up for him.
He went the Urban Meyer route of I'm going to go spend more time with my family.
So I can take another job.
And then he's going to take a gig in a month.
Yep, it's definitely what's going to unfold there. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting that we're getting games of some capacity, and we know as a result, 2 or 3 games for most teams at this point. So something to look forward to, a light at the end of the tunnel for some fans in some capacity in the not too distant future.
As a season ticket holder, I can tell you I have no idea how I can get myself among that 30%. I know that it will only be season ticket holders as of now getting a shot at that 30%. I don't know if it's going to be a lottery system. I don't know if I'm going to have to I like log on at like 8 a.m. on a Thursday to like secure my tickets. And if I'm not like within the first 2 seconds of ordering it, I'm out. And then the site crashes. Like I have no idea how they're going to go about doing this. They have said nothing.
There will be a riddle. You will have to answer 3 questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Luckily, the person that paid for my season tickets is a physicist, so he should probably be able to crack these riddles. He's a smart guy.
Hopefully so. A couple other tidbits of news popping around the league. Love that MLS has openly announced that they're investigating Inter Miami for the signing and paying of Blaise Matuidi. Potential concerns that he may be getting compensation under the table so that they can minimize their cap hits. Like literally, absolutely.
Did nobody like raise a red flag like when this happened? Like, oh, like this big name, he's just gonna be a TAM deal? Oh, okay, cool, yeah, that. All right, carry on.
I mean, I think everyone at the time was like, TAM deal, like that's kind of weird. So yeah, definitely a bit of an odd one there. The real question is like how they even punish Miami at this point if they find them guilty, which undoubtedly they will. But the real irony in all of this to me is that like this whole under the table compensation concern when like, you know, the team that he's playing for is literally like an under the table compensation that they gave to Beckham.
Right. And yeah, the owner of the club is literally like a man that came to this league, and MLS did everything they could and just blew out half of the rules just to make that possible.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with all of this. It's MLS as MLS can get.
Well, I'm sure Gary Neville and Phil, when they're both managing the club, whichever one it is.
They're
practically do we know which one? I feel like there was some confusion. They're basically the same guy.
Are
right?
they not?
That's how most brothers are, right? They're just the same dude.
Yeah, I thought Phil was actually Gary's middle name.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, that's got to be the explanation.
You nailed it. Other news, it does appear, and I thought it was going to be announced today, but it wasn't, because we like to slow play stuff here. Is FC Cincinnati finally getting that number 10? It appears, as Lucho Acosta is making the move to Cincinnati. His Mexican club Atlas has already basically said this is happening. They've already made their announcement that they accepted the deal, and he's flying to Cincinnati to finalize it, and they wished him the best of luck. So it's happening. Yay? How are we feeling about this one?
No, I mean, I think it's a tremendous signing. I mean, obviously, if you remember Lucho's time at DC United, he was an incredibly dynamic player. When you looked at that DC team, it was pretty garbage outside of him and Birnbaum and Rooney, right? And now they have this guy who's come back in, and he's going to be able to provide a dynamic presence behind Brenner and to hopefully provide that setup and creativity in midfield that this team has truly never had. Like, in the entirety of its existence, even into USL era, they've never had a true like out and out 10 ever. So now having one that's capable of kind of playing that link role between the strikers and the midfield and really provide another attacking threat at the base of the attack is gonna be potentially huge. Now's the hard part. Like, you know, they've done the difficult portion of constructing and getting some pieces together, but now they have to make it work. And on paper, this looks really good. But now they've got to sync together. They have to form an understanding. Brenner has to find his feet in a league he's never played in before. There are a lot of difficult parts to the equation, but on paper, at a minimum, they're starting to put together enough pieces to look competent and threatening.
Oh, it took us 3 years. Yeah, it is interesting to see some of the movements that'll happen off of this. It does appear that it's been reported that the club is shopping Alan Cruz, which made sense. Like, it made sense from like this, the second the Brenner move happened, you're like, okay, something's gotta give here.
Mm-hmm.
You could maybe say, like, was it going to be Locadia because he's technically only on loan till like the summer. But Cruz was not getting real minutes for Stam last year. They're making all these moves for midfield pieces that really just continue to put him as the odd man out. You had to figure he's leaving. The other thing I just don't understand was like, what is the plan with like Yuya Kubo? Because right now you have going to play out left. You have an actual number 10 now and an actual striker. All three positions that Kubo has filled in at some point in time last season to meh effect. Is he going to be moved, or is he just going to be the guy fighting for minutes until Locadia leaves, and then they'll just slide him over out left? I don't understand some of the inner workings of what they plan to do here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex dynamic that FC Cincinnati are dealing with, and Kubo. What's nice about what type of player is he can kind of slot into a couple of different roles. You mentioned he's played as a striker. You mentioned he's played through the middle. You've mentioned that he's played out on the wing. But as you've also hinted at, he and Locadia typically play on that same left-hand side. And you can't, in this league, you can't afford to blow that type of salary on a player who's not going to be an everyday impact player. So I think you're right. He is the real odd man out of this equation, because you look, the best scenario that you can really think of is you could shove him out on the right wing and hope that he, adapts to playing on a side that he's not as comfortable playing on. And then you can play a Locadia, Brenner, Kubo front line with, Acosta playing behind him. And that, I mean, on paper, again, that could potentially work. But because the balance isn't exactly there, you might not necessarily have guys in the right spots to get the most out of them. But then you also have to consider, like Alvaro Barreal, the young Argentinian player who seemed to look decent at the end of last season, and is more comfortable playing out on that wing.
Definitely.
So it's a tricky spot that Kubo finds himself in, and I would imagine the club would probably consider offers for him right now too. But it's nice to have the depth, and if you lose one of these guys, as you mentioned, potentially, Locadia leaving at the end of his loan in the summer, you got Kubo there who's ready to slot in.
I mean, what do you put? What if you were to handicap it right now? Does Locadia leave after the loan ends, or do we get another extension, or do they just straight up try to buy him?
I think it's about production at this point. They need Loca to show that he's worthy of them forking out the money necessary to make the deal permanent, or to extend the loan even. And right now, I don't know that he's shown enough to do that. I'm not saying that's a fair assessment, but if you were looking at dollars to donuts right now, I don't know that he would be in the dollar category. He'd be a bit more of the donut.
But if you now I just want a donut. If you're looking at it, like, you're kind of, if you keep Kubo around, it is basically just to kind of hedge your bets on Locadia, though, right? Because if you were to sell Kubo and then Locadia doesn't pan out, then you find yourself in the summer window. I mean, obviously, with the space to make some moves, you would have 2 open DP spots, but like, not always an easy time to go make a move. And how impactful could that person be on the whole of the season?
I don't know. I would expect that FCC will continue to build this roster into the season and into that summer window. It's highly likely that they're going to need to do that. There's still the pieces that need to be settled out within this squad. So,
like the entire back line.
You know, a center back seems a high priority at this point, and I would imagine most of their thought chips are going into that category.
Any other domestic news?
The only other bit that I thought was probably worthy of inclusion, the under 23 Olympic qualifying team has been announced by Jason Kreis. Very MLS heavy group, just 4 internationally based players. None of the heavy hitters, even though all of them would be eligible for this Olympic cycle. No McKinney, Pulisic, Reyna, Adams, Musa, Weah, Sargent, etc. But that doesn't mean that we won't see any of them in Tokyo, which, I think we very well could see a few of them get pulled in potentially.
If we qualify.
If we qualify.
Which has been quite the if over the past several cycles.
Yeah, and I'll be fully honest in saying I'm not convinced that Jason Kreis is necessarily the right manager to be leading this charge. He made some odd kind of selections in midfield, I think. But all that said, hopefully the guys will be able to qualify, because I think this is a crucial tournament for this team to qualify for heading into this next World Cup cycle.
I mean, it could be a good one because, because of things being moved around. I mean, how much will the Euros affect what some of the other squads will look like?
I mean, it totally could. You could see a lot of these younger players with the Euros being so prominent this summer, not even coming into a factor in an equation. Like a lot of teams, it's not unusual that European teams will send a prominent player, an under 23 player along to the Olympic teams to give them a leadership role, to help them develop some additional characteristics. Those guys will be with the senior teams this summer because they need to be. So I think this would be an awesome opportunity for the United States to make a splash, especially given there's no major international tournament for the men's national team to tackle this summer.
Winners and wankers?
That's where we're at. Will you give me your wanker for this week?
I saw you tweet about it, and I couldn't agree more. Our good friends at CBS, Les Moonves and friends, still just going with, hey, we're only going to air one Champions League match per week. Doesn't matter that, there's good matches both days. We're just going to pick the one because everybody needs to be watching that Tiki and Tyranny simulcast, and who can blame them, right?
Yeah, this is my wanker this week too. I'm like,
it's not great.
No, and this is different from the NBC situation where they like overpaid and now they're like trying to recoup their money. Like CBS just got their hands on this property and they immediately shoved it behind the paywall. And
and it's like they had, their cable channel, CBS Sports Network, out of all the sports networks, your ESPN, your Fox Sports 1 and 2, your NBC Sports Network, like if you were to, everyone's doing those like rankings on social media where it's like A, B, C, D, F. Like CBS Sports Network was kind of in the F range for like their entire existence because they didn't have anything. Like they were literally playing like it was like the old school like Versus Network where they were playing like the rodeo like half the time during the day. Monster trucks. Like they don't have good properties. They don't own good things outside of like some like college basketball rights that they have. So along comes the Champions League. They get it. They get it off of Turner that was wanting to dump it. And instead of like putting it on this channel that was like, I'm assuming just getting garbage ratings because who's watching the nothingness that they have on most of the time? They're not doing that. And like I get that we're all moving to this new normal of like streaming services and the over the top streaming services, and you got to have this package and this, Paramount Plus and all this. I get that, but like you still have this cable channel that's part of a cable package that people are paying good money for, that has had nothing really worth watching on it for years. And now finally you actually have a big name property, bigger than Monster Truck, bigger than Rodeo, bigger than the PGA Tour highlight package from the week before, and this is what you're doing with it, and it's just dumb.
And you have to really question the wisdom of these leagues. The Premier League and UEFA can't be pleased. I mean, their numbers have to have plummeted over here, right? Like, Europe has long looked at America as a growth sector, and there's no way that these numbers are coming back as growth numbers at this point, right? Like, I feel like people, they feel like, oh, soccer's made it here, and now everyone's willing to pay, and everyone kind of forgets that we're still in this like infancy of investment into the sport here, and it just seems incredibly short-sighted that these leagues are content to allow their properties to be shoved behind paywalls so readily here when they've not fully embedded themselves within the culture yet.
Yeah, it's super frustrating. And, NBC Sports Network is obviously doing this more and more themselves. I mean, you have all these days where you have matches that could be airing but are airing instead on Peacock, and NBCSN is airing like the same episode of Meacham's car auctions from like 8 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It is super frustrating, and I understand that this is all a push to like the new model, but ultimately it doesn't make sense. Like, NBC spends a lot of money on Premier League. Now they're starting to push it all onto the streaming. CBS, you can just tell by the talent they have and their set and everything, like they're spending good money for this Champions League broadcast. Like, they're pumping money into it. But it's like, you got to establish yourself as the home for Champions League, and you can't do that when you're not even offering on cable in 90% of the matches.
Yeah. It's hard to build a following when people can't actually follow you without forking over dollars, and it's frustrating. But
it's the larger issue of, we all thought that the streaming thing and the cord cutting thing was going to make it so much cheaper to watch cable or watch television, and instead of paying like this one big like $70 cable bill, now everybody is being $5 subscription to death. But like $5 for this, $5 for this, $5 for and like it all sounds great, but then at the end of the day you look at it like, oh yeah, no, I'm still like paying just in stupid money to watch all this stuff.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
That's what's happening. Your winner?
My winner this week, I went a little off the wall here, but
all right.
I'm giving it to a random PSG supporter who managed to land a hotel room at our FC Barcelona's hotel 2 nights ago before their Champions League match. Pretty standard fare for fans of the home team to show up at the rival hotel and set off fireworks until all hours of the night. But this PSG supporter, not only did they manage to secure this, figure out what hotel it was, get a hotel room in that space, but they waited until after all of the fireworks had died down and went well later into the night, and then went out and triggered a fire alarm in the hotel at 5 a.m. in the morning. And as we all know, Barcelona ended up crashing out of the Champions League on very narrow margins. And it's debatable whether this was effective or not. This supporter did land themselves in jail as a result of all this. Pulling fire alarms, even if it benefits your favorite sports team, is still an illegal activity to do.
Still a crime.
Yeah.
In almost every country.
But I love the dedication to this. It's terrible. I'm not endorsing actually doing this, but I'm admiring the dedication to the craft, the willingness to get yourself arrested so that your team can see advancement is just that's ultimate supporterdom. And if you're a supporter listening right now and you're not willing to get arrested for your club, I think you need to reevaluate yourself.
Yeah, you need to be an ultra. As Putty said, got to support the team.
That's right. Who's your winner this week?
My winner goes to Nashville SC and some of the other great MLS social media accounts that, we were just given the home opener, which is not very much, not a whole lot to announce, but still like one out of the way to have fun with it. Nashville SC did a great video as, their home opener is going to be the long-awaited matchup between FC Cincinnati and Nashville, two USL rivals finally meeting on the bigger stage of MLS, and they did a cool office video with it, and it was fun. The Union always does great stuff, and their content was great, and some of the other clubs had some good stuff. LAFC played up the whole like Will Ferrell versus Matthew McConaughey thing because they got Austin as their first match. It was all good. Again, not everybody did this. Some definitely didn't do it. But the ones that did, like, it's just good content. And I just, if there's one thing I like, especially on a day in the off season where I just need a little bit of enjoyment in the middle of the workday, it's just some good creative social media content. And we need more of it from everybody.
Definitely more of it from everybody. That's a good way to wrap up this week's show. As always, if you want to get involved in any capacity, we're not begging you, but we'll take it. Get a hold of Jeremy. He's at Jeremy Lance on Twitter. I'm at Wrong Side of Pond. That's it for us this week, folks. We'll talk to you soon.
Got it. Bye.